But one of them is, just eating an abundance of those plant-based foods. So one of the reasons I want to emphasize this is people often talk about the colors of the rainbows and things like that. But really, it's the plant polyphenols that are interacting with the gut microbes to then help with neurotransmitter production. And the neurotransmitters are really moving up and down, back and forth via the vagus nerve and helping this connection. So it's one of the things that I want people to really be thinking more deeply about. It's not as the way that it's often conveyed, which is, eat this and not that, that type of mentality. I'm suggesting more plant-based foods because of the fiber and the phytonutrients that are going to help calm your mind is one of the things that you could be doing.
Well, I'm joined once more by nutritional psychiatrist Dr Uma Naidoo. She is the author of the new book, Calm Your Mind with Food, a revolutionary guide to controlling your anxiety. And might I say, congratulations on the new book. If it's half as popular as your previous book, This Is Your Brain on Food, it'll do very, very well.
Thank you, Matthew. I appreciate your good wishes. And I hope the same. Fingers crossed. I really wanted to help more people. So.
Now, at the heart of this book is the connection between our psychological well-being and the foods we eat. Now, this is going to be a new departure for many people. So, how are mood and food linked?
Well, I often say to people, what happens when you have a headache? Do you ever take a headache pill? And, I'll say facetiously to them, do you take the pill and rub it on your head? Not really. You take a glass of water and you swallow it. So in a very simple way, why isn't it that we had, or I should say, why has it taken us so long to figure out that connection of what we consume in terms of food also is affecting all parts of the brain? But we know that medical science had to really unfold. And so the neuroscience around the gut brain connection and the gut microbiome, which really has evolved in the last decade and a half to 2 decades with an abundance of research, helped us understand that the gut brain connection explains the food mood connection. So you're absolutely correct. Most of the time, when we think about food, people think about their waistlines or their weight, the number on the scale, versus anything to do with our emotional resilience or mental well-being.
The field of nutritional psychiatry is relatively new, and you're pretty much at the forefront of this new field of medicine.
It is definitely a new and emerging field. It's nascent. The part of it is that the research is emerging as we go along. We certainly don't know it all, but what's evolving is enough for us to get active on the subject. Because, my viewpoint, Matthew, is that we all eat. We eat more than once a day, and it's part of our lifestyle that we can actually change, we can adapt, we can think more deeply about. And I think that this is where it's really accessible to all people and available to all people.
Can we touch upon some of the pillars you detail in the book to help calm the mind?
Yes. So, I'm going to touch on a couple of them, there are sort of general nutritional psychiatry pillars, and then pillars that we go through in the book. But one of them is, just eating an abundance of those plant-based foods. So one of the reasons I want to emphasize this is people often talk about the colors of the rainbows and things like that. But really, it's the plant polyphenols that are interacting with the gut microbes to then help with neurotransmitter production. And the neurotransmitters are really moving up and down, back and forth via the vagus nerve and helping this connection. So it's one of the things that I want people to really be thinking more deeply about. It's not as the way that it's often conveyed, which is, eat this and not that, that type of mentality. I'm suggesting more plant-based foods because of the fiber and the phytonutrients that are going to help calm your mind is one of the things that you could be doing.
We seem to be hearing the term inflammation all the time, be it systemic or chronic, and we're warned about the effects that inflammation has on our psychological and our neurological well-being. Can we discuss inflammation?
Inflammation, especially when I noticed with research that was going on during the pandemic and inflammation and basically research that I've been involved in. One of the things we're seeing is that, we didn't associate inflammation as much with mental health. But research has now made this connection that inflammation is often the driver behind conditions like mood, anxiety, even cognitive disorders and more, even attentional disorders. So I think that we need to understand where the inflammation is coming from. And one of the things we need to think about is what is inflammation. For when we are running or playing soccer and we injure a foot or scrape a knee, inflammation, acute inflammation is very important to help heal that injury. But in the body, when we're talking about, nutritional psychiatry and these issues around worry and stress and anxiety, we're talking about a more chronic, insidious anxiety. And this gets set up one of the ways, besides stress and other factors, poor sleep as well, is diet, what we're eating. So if we are consuming mostly a diet of fast foods, junk foods, processed, ultra processed foods, sort of a typical standard American diet, which is called SAD for a reason, then that's going to drive inflammation in the body and especially in the gut. And inflammation in the gut leads to an imbalance of those gut microbes, leading to a condition called dysbiosis. It also means that those inflammatory byproducts of those foods that we're eating are more damaging to the gut and start to damage the single cell lining. And when it does that, we get conditions like leaky gut or intestinal permeability being set up. So inflammation is actually at the root cause of a lot of these issues. And a very powerful adjustment that we can make is how we're eating to help lower the inflammation and allow for some healing of the gut to happen.
Can we move to the microbiome? How important is it for our mental and our physical health to have a diverse microbiome?
It's extremely important and something that many people overlook. That's why we talk about the colors of food, the variety of plant foods. One of the main reasons is fiber is a huge nutrient needed by the gut microbes. So there are trillions of microbes that live in the gut. The most studied in research are the bacteria, but there are viruses, protozoa, archaea, fungi, and more. There are 300 trillion of, there's trillions of them in the gut. And they interact with the food that we eat. So think about it this way. On a day that you're eating a healthy salad, the microbes help with digestion. They're involved in that process. And the breakdown process and products are actually short chain fatty acids. The short chain fatty acids are very helpful and healthy for our gut. They actually fend off inflammation. They have good and positive qualities. But on days of your pattern, I should say, not just one day, but if what you're really consuming is that standard American diet of fast foods and highly sugared, processed, ultra processed foods, the breakdown products are more toxic. And that means that those gut microbes break down the product, but what gets really almost activated are the bad microbes that eat those foods and thrive on those foods. And when those microbes thrive, they upset that balance to really start to form inflammation and dysbiosis in the gut.
And staying with the microbiome, what role do fermented foods play here?
An important study was completed and published in a highly reputable journal called Cell. The study was published in summer of 2021. And it really looked at the addition of fermented foods into the diet and how it showed that adding fermented foods helped lower inflammation. And so I feel a very simple lifestyle tip that we can have is adding fermented foods into our diet on a daily basis. Start slowly, build that up, but having them as part of what you eat is extremely important. They also bring live active cultures to your microbes, adding to that diversity. The colors, the textures of food, the flavors, the polyphenols, all of these things add to the biodiversity of our microbiome, which is hugely important for the health of our microbiome. And a healthy gut is, a mind that is happier and with less stress. So it's all connected.
When we talk about mental health and well-being, the terms anxiety and depression will come up. As a matter of interest, is it possible for both conditions to coexist in a person at any given time?
It's sometimes difficult to tease them apart, but in my clinical practice and in really seeing so many patients over these decades of work, very often they coexist, but the presenting symptom may be more anxiety. With someone else, it may be more of the mood component. But very often, and in fact, many of the treatments are similar. They can often coexist. So I think it's important for us to understand that if someone is complaining and feeling anxiety, they may also have a component of a mood disorder. And so we just need to tease that apart and figure out what they need the most help with, and where should we start in terms of treatment.
And is it the case that if someone is feeling anxious or depressed, that they're less likely to reach for the healthy food
That
option?
is usually, when people seek foods that have that they find comfort in, but often those foods that people consider to be comfort foods are discomfort for the brain. So in the moment they may feel just fine and you might enjoy them, but over time they're really ultimately just not good for your neurons, for your brain cells, for the development of kind of a healthy longevity and a healthy brain.
Now, as far as supplementation is concerned, in addition to anti anxiety foods, what supplements should we be considering consuming? I know you're fond of consuming vitamin C, for example.
I have, and I think that there is a role for supplementation. That's because none of us eats a perfect diet. We might try and make really good efforts, but none of us eats a perfect diet. So there may actually be nutritional gaps. Vitamin C is one of those great vitamins that helps with the absorption of extremely important nutrients in the body, and I think it's an easy thing for us to do. We can easily do that by eating citrus fruit. But here's what's interesting: the highest levels of vitamin C actually in things like kiwi fruit and red bell peppers, which have a higher level of vitamin C. So these are easy to incorporate into our diet. I also think that supplementation plays an important role in conditions like depression. For example, there's been a robust number of studies looking at saffron, the spice, and when we cook with saffron, we use a tiny bit. And the studies really had to use a supplement to test it because they needed high levels of the saffron. But they had really good data in relation to mood. So there's an example where someone may be struggling with symptoms of mood and anxiety, that a supplement could be helpful in the form of saffron. Another one is ashwagandha, which has been used in Ayurvedic medicine for a very long time, but really has some promising data related to anxiety relief. So another one that we can, consider adding to our repertoire of supports.
You list some delicious anti anxiety recipes in the book. Do you have any favorites or any go to recipes yourself?
I'll tell you, one of my favorites, something that I've talked about for a long time, my grandmother's and then my mom, the golden milk recipe. So just, your favorite milk, some spices, and really turmeric with a pinch of black pepper. It's just been a favorite of mine all along, and it's something that is universal. It's something that many people can enjoy. But some of my other favorite recipes that I really leaned into, sort of my cultural background and my heritage around spices and Ayurvedic practice, I created recipes in the Mediterranean style, meaning combination of those Mediterranean foods that we know have so much of evidence behind healthy moods, cardiovascular health, and things. But I also added in an Asian component from the spices or the types of vegetables that we used in the recipes. So those are the ones I'm most excited to share with people and see what they think about. But the other thing that I did is that I made the recipes interchangeable so that, I might be talking about tofu or an eggplant, but you can just as easily cook that recipe with those spices with chicken breast, or add some spices to or flavors to a steak, or those herbs. I've made it interchangeable for people because I want people to be as flexible as possible, and not everyone eats the same diet.
And I have to say, the best thing about this book, which was the same for your previous book, is that everything you talk about in the book is grounded in science and in the latest research, which is crucial for getting your message across about the efficacy of eating these foods in order to help improve your mental and your physical health.
This is correct. So I appreciate that, and I think it's so important just to be able to be backed by science and shared in a responsible way. We're not at a point of being prescriptive, but we have healthy guidance that we can offer people to feel better. And where we have such a mental health crisis, why not lean into it right now?
Well, the book is called Calm Your Mind with Food, a revolutionary guide to controlling your anxiety. Dr. Naidoo, thank you so much.
Thanks so much. It was lovely to talk to you, Matthew. Thank you for having me.
Hey there, friends. If you got value from this video, well, you know the deal. Please like, subscribe, share, and I will see you in the next one.